5 is the point where it becomes equal, right? Now imagine if you try to resolve the equation at a wrong point. If you say 3 plus 2 is equal to 6 minus 1, therefore 3 is equal to 6, plus is equal to minus, 2 is equal to 1, what will you do? Completely skewed understanding, right? I want you to understand this, because when people say, when I say you are equated to Ishvara, people resolve it at a wrong point and they enter into some kind of an imagination which takes you on a ride. It's an equation to be understood. One needs to have a lot of, one has to resolve it at a right point. If you resolve it at a wrong point, you will enter into some kind of a, you will create such a subjectivity in you, okay? And this is where it may seem like that, oh, why are you saying that? But people create such imagination around this equation if they don't resolve it at the right point, okay? All the modern day spirituality, which then says that you can govern everything through your thought processes. It is almost seeing this equation, but where you are resolving it at a wrong point. Understand that, right? Does the universe behave according to your wishes? It doesn't, right? So now the modern day, all these, that you change the way of thinking and the universe will conspire so that you will get things your way. It all sounds beautiful, sounds so wonderful, sounds like something which is very, it's like a key to the universe, but it actually puts you on a total tangent. If you start believing that universe works according to your wishes, right? Try to just say, okay, change the law of gravity, little one of the laws. See if it works according to your wishes or not. So this is a problem, okay? Non-objectivity, non-understanding. This spirituality has become like all these talks and sentences and phrases which are all like sounding beautiful, but they make no sense. And this is why Vedanta means you need to be rigorous in your thinking. You can't just build comfortable ideas around you. You need to be highly analytical, highly critical in your thinking, and highly alert in your logic, how you're using your logic. Otherwise you go on a tangent, and that tangent is such a tangent that it makes you more subjective than a normal human being. Okay, so therefore this equation is a very, very sophisticated thing. Or for example, people think that the minute you understand this reality, you will have powers, extraordinary powers. This is also what? Not understanding the equation, where there are differences and where there is a resolution. If you don't understand it correctly, you will again have these, oh, wise person means, oh, that person has some powers. All these logical connections that you make are all faulty connections. Okay, so therefore you have to understand that at a certain level there is a big difference between Ishvara and Jiva. Like 3 is not 6, like plus is not minus, 2 is not 1. There is a difference, okay? But even though there is a difference, there is a point of resolution. So you need to know what is the difference between you and Ishvara. Okay, and then where is the point of resolution? This is why even I have heard so many people talking, they said, oh, Ishvara is only till you come to Vedanta. When you come to Vedanta, then there is equality, so therefore there is no need to pray. This is also something that I hear very, very commonly. And that again, they haven't understood that at the level of apparent, there is a difference. And therefore, you need to understand what is Ishvara, and you need to establish a relationship with the cause of the universe. there is no Vedanta without Tatpada. And there is no Vedanta without having a proper relationship with Tatpada and understanding I as an individual, okay, has a relationship with the cause of the universe. Then you can talk about the point of resolution. But initially you need to understand how you as an individual is related to the cause of the universe. So therefore, the cause of the universe was initially talked about. One of the ways in which it was talked about is through the word Om. We saw last verses. Okay, what does Om mean? Because the cause of the universe means immediately, what is our understanding of the cause of the universe? Somebody very big away from me. Right? So immediately, what is, it's based on what? Some fear, helplessness, that there is some big entity out there and I am subject to what? The whims and fancies of that particular entity. Superpower, exactly. So now Vedanta has a different vision of what Ishvara is. So you need to change based on inquiry. What is that Ishvara that Vedanta is talking about? Okay. So therefore, through the term Om, we saw Ishvara is all that is here in the universe. Because there is one simple logic. How do I know? How do I know that Ishvara is everywhere? What is the logic? Why should I believe you? Why should you believe Gita? Okay, this is where you use a logic and you say that for any cause, okay, any creation, right, there are two types of causes. What are the, if somebody has to manufacture this table, what are the two causes, two minimum causes?
Wood and carpenter.
Excellent, excellent. So the carpenter is needed to create a table. That is what we call the maker. If you use philosophical term, it means efficient cause. Efficient cause means the maker of this table. But the carpenter needs, as she says, wood. Right? Carpenter cannot just imagine a table and the table will manifest. It will not happen. Carpenter maybe can imagine a table and the shape and the size and everything in his own mind, but in order to manifest the table needs the wood. Right? So that is, in philosophical terms, we call it the material cause. So any creation requires two causes, the maker and the material. Yes? Okay. Now, when we think about the cause of the universe, what is our orientation? That Ishvara, the cause of the universe, is which cause? Maker. Exactly. Right? Who made the universe? Then the question comes, which is the material that this Ishvara used to create the universe? Huh? Huh?
Jiva.
Yeah. But what is? Exactly. So if the elements, now Nita is saying, it's true, what she is saying is right, that 5 elements are used to create the universe, and the whole universe is permutation and combination of 5 elements according to Vedic model, right? What are those 5 elements? Akasha, what? Space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Jal, water, and Prithvi, earth, right? So 5 elements. Now the question is, where did these 5 elements come from? Because if they were already there, which Ishvara used to create the universe, then there is already a creation, because those 5 elements are already there.
Who made those 5 elements?
So who created those 5 elements? Exactly. Right? So therefore, what in this case, already there is creation, already there is plastic, already there is wood. In this case, the maker and material can be two different things. Understand this, right? A maker, the carpenter, is different from the wood, and the carpenter uses the wood for creation. In case of in the entire creation, you can't say logically that Ishvara used this material to create the universe. What is the problem with that? When you say Ishvara used this material, what does it mean? It was already there. Then you can ask, who created that material? Right?
The maker and material is
Exactly. Exactly. So then you will get into infinite regression. Understand that. Look at the logical fallacy if you don't understand Ishvara right. Because then you will say, Ishvara, there is some other Ishvara who created these 5 elements, and this Ishvara used those.
Ishvara.
Then there is Junior Ishvara, right? So these are the kind of things. And then where did he create those 5 elements from? You will see, you will get into infinite regression. Therefore, the only logical possibility is, in the case of the entire creation, is the maker and the material are the same. Very important to understand. There is no other. Postulate any other possibility and you will run into logical errors. Okay? So, now what does it change? So what? Before I thought Ishvara is the maker, and now I think Ishvara is both the maker and the material. So so what? It is very significant because where will you find Ishvara? Everywhere. The implication of this understanding is a huge shift from Ishvara that we think is generally away from me, somewhere in time and space, remote from me, to this understanding of Ishvara being everywhere. What is the logic? Why, Rajiv, you say that the implication is Ishvara is everywhere? It's right. Why? What is the logic? What is the thought process which you use to arrive at what you are saying? Yeah, it's true. What you said is right. Okay. What you have to understand is, just look at this example. The carpenter can be away from the table. You don't even know who the carpenter is, where he is, but the material cause of this table, which is the wood, can it be away from the table? Can it be away from the table? No. There is, right? It's always there. Imagine if this is a wooden table, without wood, can you even imagine a table? No. Right? So therefore, the material cause always pervades the effect. So therefore, then if Ishvara is the material cause of the universe, it pervades the effect, which is what? The universe. Correct? It's almost like mathematics. Right? It's nothing to do with what I'm saying and what somebody else is saying. It's just mathematics. Clear thinking, logic. If Ishvara is everywhere, then the next question is, why don't I see Ishvara? In this case, I can see the wood. I can see the wood. But Ishvara is not showing. Now when I see, I only can see the mountains, I can see the rivers, I can see the trees, I can see human beings, animals, birds. Where is Ishvara? If it is the material cause, I should be able to see it.
You have to change the vision.
Exactly. As Tushar says, that you just have to change your vision and you can appreciate the presence of Ishvara everywhere. How? This whole universe, now even look at this. Okay? Now this table is something which is nothing but wood. Now the wood, do you think is the reality? Is the ultimate reality? The wood, thank God we have quantum physics. Right? The wood itself is what? Atoms. The atoms are nothing but particles. Then ultimately there is this, even here we used to say that after a while there is something which is, there is no tangible object. It's just a concept. Right? And what is Ishvara? Which is from that concept, it manifests the tiniest particles and arranges them in a way that sometimes it becomes wood. The same particles, when they are arranged in a different permutation and combination, it becomes a rock. The same atoms and particles, when they are arranged in a different permutation and combination, it becomes a cell, which is a live, living cell. Okay, so that intelligence, which it's not just coming together of atoms and particles randomly. They are so well designed that they create all these different objects in the universe. So that intelligence which arranges it all in a way that each form comes into manifestation, and that form is related to other forms in the universe. So that is what we call Ishvara. That intelligence is pervading. And this is why, as Tushar says, it requires a change in drishti. That intelligence is not available to you to be seen as an object, but it is available for you to be understood through inquiry. That's why you need Shastra. You need somebody to make you see things which you otherwise cannot see. Because it's not available for your vision, it's not available for your sight, but it is available for your understanding. Okay, so therefore, now if you begin to see that Ishvara is that intelligence which is bringing together the tiniest particles and making the universe what it is, where will you not find Ishvara? Where will you not find Ishvara? What is not arranged in the universe?
Nowhere.
Everywhere is just an arrangement. So that means it is something which is, you don't need to believe. The words are used to make you see things. Okay, so therefore you now begin to see the presence of Ishvara in everything. Now the problem is, when we say everything, it again remains very vague. Everything means what? What is everything? If I ask you to name all what everything means, will you be able to name everything? No. By the time you even begin to say something in this universe, there are so many things which are known by you and many things which are not even known by you. Not even by you, but even scientists, they don't know what is there in the universe. Okay? And by the time you have started saying something, it has changed, because things are constantly undergoing change. So it's impossible for you to enumerate everything. So therefore, you need to use a framework which captures everything, which you understand that, yeah, when you say everything, this is what it means. So Om uses that framework. What is that framework? Om is divided into three words: A, U and Ma. What does Akara stand for? It stands for, yeah, see, that's the thing. We think that we've studied Gita, but so much of it escapes.
Form, living and non.
Exactly. What? Physical forms. Right? So Akara stands for the entire physical universe. Now that physical universe includes what? My body and the bodies of everything, everyone. Bird, animal, reptile, anything that you can think of. Okay. So that the same intelligence which makes the rock what it is makes my cell what they are. And the same intelligence is right now coordinating my cells, billions of cells, in a way that I can speak, I can hear, I can, my digestive system is working, my circulatory system, everything is going on. I'm not sitting and making it all happen, it's happening. It's at work. And this is why, as Rajiv was saying, we take health for granted. Why? This machine has been working tirelessly from the time of your birth and you don't even pay attention to it. And is doing amazing amount of coordination every second. When one thing goes a little off, the whole system goes off, and that's when you begin to worry about your health. And you realize how precious your health is, and how important it is for the whole system to work in harmony with the other. And who's making it happen? We don't even think about it. There is a play of Ishvara. Okay? That's what you have to see. And therefore, this is something which is there in all physical bodies. Now, our understanding of universe is, so that means Ishvara includes my physical body and the entire physical universe, known to me and unknown to me. It pervades everything. Okay? Now, we think that all that is there is the physical universe. Then, Upanishads say it's not only the physical universe, there is Ukara. What does Ukara stand for? Subtle. Okay? There is a whole subtle universe. Now, the problem when we say subtle universe, people again run into imagination. They run into what? The whole modern spirituality revolves around this, but it is function of what is written in the Shastra plus a lot of imagination. Okay? So therefore, they talk about aura, then they talk about all the energy. Some of it may be true, and some of it is, you never know what is the line between your imagination and what is reality. Okay? So therefore, all these different things of aura cleansing that people do, or some energies that they balance, everything is what we call part of subtle body. But for Vedanta, people are very, very objective. Okay? When they talk about subtle body, we don't talk about all these things that others talk about. They may be there, may not be there, I don't know. When we talk about subtle body, you must understand what we mean. Our definition is something which is very extremely rational, nobody can deny it. Okay? What we mean by subtle body is that there is one thing which is your physical eye, but there is another thing which is your sight. The sight is subtle. Why is sight subtle? Because I can see your physical eye, but I have no access to what you see. I have no sight. I have no access. It's only you who knows what you're seeing and what you. That's why you go to the ophthalmologist, and he will ask you what do you see, and what he doesn't have access to what you see. Based on what you tell him or her, he will infer what is your problem and give you the treatment. Okay? So that's why it's something which is not available to me physically, so therefore I call it subtle. Okay? So the subtle universe includes the capacity of my 5 sense organs. What are the 5 sense organs? My taste, sense of taste, smell, touch, hearing and sight. Okay? The capacity, by physical ear, I don't know whether you hear or not. Okay? So this is what we call the capacity of 5 sense organs. Then it also includes the capacity of 5 organs of action. What does it mean? When Rajiv says that now his mother is paralyzed, the physical hand is there or not? Is there. But the capacity of that hand to move is lost. Just by looking at your physical hand, I have no idea whether she can move her hand or not. This is why you call it subtle. Right? You can have physical organs, but you don't know whether they are working or not. Right? So this also constitutes the 5 organs of action. It includes 5 sense organs, 5 organs of actions. What are the 5 organs of actions? Hands, legs, what else? Speech, speech, then organs of excretion and procreation. Right? These are the 5 organs of action. So this is what also is subtle. Their capacity is subtle, and this is why it includes the subtle universe. What else? 5 organs of action, 5 sense organs, then what they call pancha prana. What are the pancha pranas? Pancha prana is inhalation, exhalation, then what else? That constitutes breathing, digestion, right? Then respiration is inhaling and exhaling, digestion, then circulation. Excretion also is part of prana, and also what they include is the last breath is also included, because that's when it leaves the body. Prana, that's why what makes a body which is alive to a body which is not alive, right? Because in fact, physically, can you see something leaving? You can't see. That's why you have to actually call a doctor, and the doctor will declare the patient what? Alive or not alive. Because you have no access. The subtle thing, the doctor has an access. Okay? So therefore, that includes pancha prana. Subtle body includes pancha prana also, and finally what? Your mind. Includes your mind. Okay? Why your mind? Exactly. Your mind, because by looking at you, I have no access to what you are thinking about. I can infer through your gestures, through your facial expressions, what you could be thinking, but I have actually no access to your thoughts. Okay? So therefore, my subtle also includes the thoughts, the mind, right? And those thoughts, as Nita is saying, are further divided into 4 categories based on the functions they serve. Okay? What is the function they serve? What are the different aspects of thinking? One is what we call manas, which is your emotional mind. Emotional, right? You have emotions. The second is cognitive. Right now you are understanding things, which is what we call cognitive thinking. Intellectual, right? The third is your memory, and the fourth is your sense of I, ahankara. So that is included in your subtle body. Now you have to understand Ishvara pervades not only my subtle body, but the subtle body of everything. What does it mean? Yeah, Ishvara is organizing what according to the laws, how your digestive system is working. It's not random. Please understand, when you say Ishvara is organizing, it's not some big uncle is organizing it and sitting in your stomach and organizing it. Right? There are laws. The intelligence forms itself through what? The digestive system. And because it follows a certain law, the doctor has access to how it should work. And when it goes out of balance, how to bring it back into balance. If it was just randomly working, nobody will have any access to how to intervene. The very fact that this intelligence organizes your digestive system, your circulatory system according to the laws of physiology, a doctor has an access to how it works and also to intervene and to bring it back into balance. So when you understand Ishvara, don't imagine Ishvara in your digestive system doesn't mean that he's sitting there and moving your digestive system. It only means that there is an intelligence which organizes all the cells in a way and all the organs which are formed by the cells in a way that they perform a given function. That function can go off. and then it can, that function can go off because of the natural wear and tear. The way the body is designed, it is designed only to live for a certain length of time. So there is, whether you're extremely careful or not, it is going to go through deterioration. It's impossible to keep it intact. But along with that natural programming also is your free will. What you are doing with your organs, what are your eating habits, what are your sleeping habits, how much do you take care of, your exercises or whatever. Okay, so that means that intelligent system is working, and then you participate in that whole process through your free will, which will then decide how those organs are going to function. Okay, that free will that you are given to detect that, some people are not even aware, and some people are highly aware about their health, about their whatever. So that intelligence, where is that also is that potential of human brain who can figure out, reason and say, if I want to stay healthy when I'm old, now I need to take care of. All this reasoning, where does it come from? The human brain, where neurons are ticking in a way that you can figure it all out. Where is it? That is also within Ishvara. That possibility of how those neurons tick, which makes you deduct, which makes you think through the whole process, there is also Ishvara there. You have that capacity in your brain. How much capacity you use or not use, that is within your free will. But that capacity is given, and that is where Ishvara is. Okay? So you must understand, when we say Ishvara is everywhere, what does it mean? It doesn't mean everything is good. It doesn't mean that somebody is sitting and constantly fixing your system. It only means that there is an inherent intelligence which organizes all the atoms and particles according to the laws, where it can perform a given function. That organizing principle is what we call Ishvara. That Ishvara is not only organizing things at the physical level, it also organizes things at the subtle level. The capacity of your sense organs, your mind, your pranas, everything, it organizes that. So that's why U represents what? Ishvara, in form of that subtle order, in that intelligence which governs the subtle functions in the universe. And that subtle functions includes what? Not only your subtle functions, but subtle functions of what? Every being that is there in the universe. That is U. Then, if you take into account physical and subtle universe, what is remaining? You think that everything is over. Makara. What does Makara represent? Excellent. Right? The whole causal body. Causal body, what does it mean? It only means that right now I find myself in connection with one given physical body and subtle body. Right? And you find yourself in very special connection with one physical body and one subtle body. Each one with one body and one mind, one's own talents. Right? Each one has come with its own genetic codes, the capacity of brain. You're very smart, you're a genius. Right? But one person can be genius in mathematics, the other person can be a genius in art, the third as a musician. So even that so-called genius manifests in so many different ways. So what are the causes? Why you are so good at one thing and I'm good at something totally different? Why? Ishvara is the cause, is creating the physical body, different physical bodies, different subtle bodies with different capacities. Okay? But why are the bodies different? Why are those capacities different? So this is where, as Nita says, there is a causal. Okay? The causal means that there are causes which make your body what it is. It's not random. There are causes which make my body what they are. What are the causes that, in fact, even medical science talks about the causes. What calls for differences? If you look at what calls for differences, your DNA, your genes, right? The coding, all that. If you look into psychology, then what are those differences? The childhood that you've had, that call for differences. The external factors, the environment, the country in which you are born, all these are the causes which make your body what it is and what makes somebody else's body what something. Your psychology, your subtle body what is and what somebody else is. But in addition to these causes that we already know, which account for differences, there is another aspect which is, which is included in the causal body, which is Ishvara, is your own karma. That is included, right? It doesn't mean that your karma manifests through what? The genes of a family in which you are born. Your karma manifests through your DNA. Your karma manifests through your childhood. Your karma manifests, so it pervades everything. Okay? It accounts for all the differences. So this is what we call the causal. The causal means each person has come with connection to one given body and mind because of one's own causes, which is what we call karma. Okay? So therefore, that causes what is Ishvara? It's the intelligence which is organizing your karma in a way, it takes into account all these factors, right? And gives you a birth at that given point in time, 1975. Time of the birth, what? April, 10 a.m. This and nothing else, right? And then this parentage, this physical body. So therefore, this whole intelligence which gives rise to that given body and the way it connects that body with everything else around is what we call the causal. Okay, so Ishvara is also in form of causal. What does it mean? It means something which is quite incredible. The presence of you today is a result of causes created when? In the past. And in the past, where did that body come from? The past. And before that. And when does it all begin? Exactly. So therefore, when you say Ishvara is the cause of the universe, what you are saying is, it's not that Ishvara is present only now when the physical body and the subtle body is existing. Ishvara is present what? The intelligence is present.
It's been there for...
Exactly. It's been there forever, organizing constantly and manifesting different forms. Yes.
Can I infer previously in the past, I could be belonging to the plant kingdom, then to the animal kingdom, and then evolve into the human kingdom?
What the Vedic vision is that it is not linear like that. Okay, every jiva has so many different permutations and combination as a cause that you can be anything. Next birth, once you're a human being, is no guarantee that next birth is going to be human being or more. There is no guarantee. Okay, you can be next birth. Anybody can what? Be a dog or a cat or a cow or whatever, right? There is no rule that you just kind of progress, right? The only promise that is given in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna by Lord Krishna is, once you come to this knowledge, then you will get subsequent births in a way that you will be connected to this knowledge, and then until the time that there is moksha. Until then you can go up, down, anywhere. It's like, that's why you call it samsara chakra. You go up and then you come down. You go up, you come down. There is no linearity. There is no linear progression.
Come again.
How do you
That means
evolve?
that once you have got
As
into
you
this
evolve.
knowledge,
Well, yeah, because that is when
then
you are,
you will keep coming
you will
back
keep
to be,
coming back.
obviously, to be able to get that more of that knowledge, you have to be a human being. You can't be anything.
Exactly, exactly. So that means you will come back, not, you can't then come back as an animal or something. You will only come back as a human being, and in a better and better condition and better position to know this reality.
Yeah, but you can come back as a human being with this knowledge, which again you may have create misconceptions within the knowledge and go backward.
Very, very true. So true. And this is why this second aspect of this this whole teaching is divided into two. One is Brahma Vidya and the other one is Yoga Shastra. Brahma Vidya means this knowledge of reality about you and Ishvara being equal. This particular thing you need to understand, and that is what we call Brahma Vidya. Okay. The other is Yoga Shastra. Your personal, you are evolving as a person to understand this reality. Okay. Now, in that effort that you make, not everybody makes equal effort. Okay. Some people actually really transform their lives based on this whole teaching, and they really make an effort to look into themselves about, their fears, their sadness, their anger or whatever, and really change as a human being. Okay. There are others who tend to say, oh, I'm Brahman anyway, I'm just one with Ishvara. So they tend to kind of put it all aside, their personal growth, and when they do that, there is a cost to it. There is a huge cost to it, because when you do that, right, when you have not gained maturity, your actions are what? Still from a very narrow perspective. And when your actions are from very narrow perspective, you will get result for those actions. You can't avoid, because it's a law. So therefore, just concrete example. Anybody could have studied this and can have many different problems. One of the common problems that we generally hear of in the newspaper and all is, a teacher behind money, power, having relationship with students. These are all problems. Okay, that means the person has not used this knowledge to really undergo a personal transformation, has used this knowledge to justify one's inappropriate behaviors. And when you do that, right, the laws are working. You can't escape laws. So there is a result for that. And sometimes there is another subtle ways. These are the very common ways that we see. There are subtle ways. Okay, when you are a teacher, you implicitly assume a role which is slightly superior than somebody who is learning from you, and there can be so many subtle manipulations, very subtle. Okay, and the teacher has to be extremely mature to not let that happen, because you can't encourage that dependency behavior, or that sometimes you take undue favors, you do things which are subtly exploiting, like all these, one has to be extremely careful. Even ideas that you propagate, if I give you wrong ideas, I'm responsible. As a teacher, there is one thing which is a real Gita teaching, and there is another thing which is like all these ideas around Gita which has got nothing to do with Gita. And if I propagate ideas which are not exactly correct, I'm responsible, because I'm using my free will to what? Yeah, color your thinking. So therefore, there are big responsibilities. Therefore, anybody who is, it's not about, this is something which is so important. The minute this Vedanta says the world is mithya, what is the meaning you create in your mind? Mithya means you don't need to pay attention to it. Mithya means that you don't care, you negate it. Okay? Mithya doesn't mean that at all. It only means in terms of reality, it has a dependent reality. Mind is mithya, it has a dependent reality. Doesn't mean that the mind is not important. Doesn't mean that you can let mind do whatever it wants. No. So therefore, all these therefores that you add, which are misguided, they all have a cost. And all that is taken into account in causal. Those causes that you create, you have to experience the result for it. That's why even in this lifetime, sometimes you'll find teachers who are very brilliant and at the same time have a completely crazy behavior at a personal level. That means they have worked on one level but they have ignored the other level, and therefore all the results are coming to make them see that hey, they need to take care of this. But at the same time, this knowledge is something which is quite, it's unlike anything, where it makes, provided you have a proper teacher, it really makes you see the reality totally clearly. And the more you use this teaching to see the realities clearly and align your life according to those realities, the more you will be blessed and the more you are in line with the whole thing. Okay? And then you will progress. Then there is no regression. You may have minor setbacks because of the past causes, but you just basically progress. Okay, so that all includes the causal. So causal means when I say Ishvara is the causal also, you can't put a beginning to Ishvara. Right? The causes which run when? Timeless causes. Okay. And what about in the future? When will the causes stop operating? Never a time, right? So you make Ishvara not just one little entity subject to time and space, but the very cause of time and space, which runs through different cycles of creation. This is what the Vedic vision of Ishvara is. That intelligence which organizes all these different atoms and particles, manifests the universe, brings it back into unmanifestation, again manifest, unmanifest, manifest, unmanifest. This is what we call nature of Ishvara. Om includes, right? You have taken care of everything. Now find me one more thing which is excluded: subtle, physical and causal. Ishvara, pervading everything. Find me one more thing. You have captured everything that is there in the universe, and you have said that intelligence pervades everything. That is Ishvara. And what is your power, you, the little one, right, who's born, who has a birth date of 1975? What is your power compared to that Ishvara's power? Nothing. So this equation is not some kind of a mad equation. It shows the difference. There is this whole intelligence which is governing the universe from time immemorial, within which you find yourself, which is not what? Not even if you look at yourself right now, and if I show you the map of the universe and said, okay, put your presence in this map of the universe, how much space will it occupy? Huh?
Not even the dot.
Not even a dot, because even Earth is a dot. So therefore, at that level, there is a huge difference. Please understand, between you, me, who I think I am, and Ishvara, which is the cause of the whole universe. But the beauty is, even though there is such a huge difference, there is a point of resolution. That is a beauty. That's what makes Vedanta ingenious. Ingenious, brilliant. I can show you the difference which is so big, and at the same time I can find a 5 equivalent where there is a complete resolution. But keeping those differences intact, not resolving at a wrong point. Okay, so O includes that. Now, if you have not understood totally, there is another way that these verses are talking about what is the nature of Ishvara. Okay, Lord Krishna, I will just explain a little bit, uses an analogy. An analogy by saying, I am, right? In this 4 and 5, I will chant, and then we were doing that, right, Neeta? Okay. So chapter 9, verses 4 and 5. So after Om, he talks about Ishvara in a different way. So that to make sure that you have not missed certain aspect of what is Ishvara. Right? Here he says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina masthani sarva bhutani nachaham tveshvavasthitaha. So here he says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta bhutina. Okay. So everything in this universe is pervaded by me. And then in the other verse, it's not here, he gives an example, Sutre Mani Gana Iva. I think we did it earlier, no? We did it, Sutre Mani Gana, yeah. That was chapter 7, 27 and 28. Exactly. So how do you understand Sutre Mani Gana Iva? So there is a string which is what? Putting together all the beads. Now look at this universe, look at this analogy and see how you can apply to the universe. In this universe, what is equivalent to a bead? All of you. So what does it mean, all of you? It means what? All the different bodies. Okay. So all the bodies, and what is putting together all the bodies? There is something, sorry? The laws of the universe. Just the way your body works, my body also works. That's why when you go and see a doctor, even though the doctor is meeting you for the first time, knows exactly what is going on. How? Because once he knows one body, he knows all the bodies. Okay. Now that human body also he treated because of what? Years of research on rat. Before a medicine comes into market, you should see what all goes on. There's these clinical trials that take place. On whom do these clinical trials take place initially? On the rat. Okay. Once it shows a certain success, then it comes to human clinical trials. Then it comes to...
Rat's body must be closest to the human.
Exactly. When you go to a medical school, the first thing you have to cut is what? A frog or what? Yeah, a frog. Exactly. So you want to study human body, but where do you start? With a frog's body. This is what we say the laws. Right? What works on a frog, what is the logic? What works on a frog also works on a human being in some ways. There are some similarities. How are the similarities arranged? This is what we call the laws. Laws of physiology. Ishvara manifests through laws of physiology. Okay. How else are we all connected? Even at subtle level, right? All the hurt that we carry within us because of interactions that we have had 20 years ago, who connects it all? There is a human brain, and it's amazing. We have all these data, that is coming to us every day, how many data is your eye reporting? Incredible amount of data. Out of that data, how much do you remember the next day? Very little. So what is it which decides that this, out of this huge data, you have decided to be highly selective and filter and keep only few in your memory? Why?
Whatever you think is relevant.
Exactly. Only from this data, what is interesting is you only keep very unconsciously what you think is relevant. Okay? And then that what you think is relevant then becomes your life story. Because you build on the next day when you have many experiences, again you choose a selective thing, and what happens, that selective thing which will build on this initial story that you have built.
And there's a pattern to that.
And then there is this whole pattern to that continuity. Right? You build stories and you identify with those stories, and then that makes you the person, your personality, your values, your preferences, your outlook. Right? There is a pattern to it. So that is also what, where is it, all this information, the way it is processed and all that, this is all part of psychology. When you go and talk to a psychologist and you say, oh, I'm not feeling well, and they'll begin to ask you questions, why you're not feeling well. And what emerges is this whole big pattern. That is also how we are related. Because for my psychology, I take data from where? From external world. And what I have chosen to register from my interactions in the external world. This is why when you change perspective, what are you doing? Are you changing what is happening to you? Are you changing that? No. Nobody can totally control that. But what are you doing? You are re-looking at your selection process, your belief system, which makes you select a certain data and what? Build a picture on it. If you begin to look at the data, the same data, differently, or pay attention to something else a little bit more, you have a different picture of the universe and your role in it. Okay? All this happens within Ishvara. Ishvara doesn't mean something small, please understand. All these possibilities of changing your behavior system by understanding how the whole thing works, understanding how you have been very skewed in your interpretation and shifting the whole gamut of possibilities that are given to you, they all exist within Ishvara. That's why you pray. You pray and you ask that, let my thinking be more in line with what is, rather than my belief systems which are just, a result of not totally inaccurate, but a very selective processing of data. Okay, so this is within Ishvara. Then, so that means physiology, the laws of physiology are within Ishvara, the laws of psychology are within Ishvara, then the laws of causes, karma, are within Ishvara. Then what we saw is even the fact that the Vedic vision is a very holistic vision. It does not divide the world into material and spiritual. All that is here is divinity. Where is material? Tell me. If you have understood that all that is here is that intelligence which governs everything, where is material world? Show me. There is no material world. All that is here is Ishvara. Okay. Therefore, within this Ishvara, you include what? All your resources. You call it Lakshmi. The resources that are coming to you are not just random coming of resources. You have deserved it in some way. You have created causes for those resources to come to you. So you welcome them. But the resources that are there with you today, there is no guarantee that they will stay with you tomorrow. So what do you need to do? Make sure as a smart person that they stay with you, and in order for them to stay with you, what is required? Exactly, an intelligent intervention where you don't transgress dharma. Yeah. Intelligent intervention where with all these resources that you have, you don't transgress dharma. Because the minute you transgress dharma, what are you creating? The causes which will take away those resources from you. They may manifest 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, but you've created. This is what, this is why we call samsara chakra. Look at this, not only in terms of money. For example, okay, you are intelligent, huge asset. Huge asset, you become, because of that intelligence, you work very hard, very good. Okay, you become very successful. Now all the causes are leading you to what? Success. You become a CEO, wonderful. All the causes culminating into real big success. When you become CEO, there is a possibility that you become arrogant. Possibility. Not everybody is arrogant. Now the minute you become arrogant, you start looking down on people. You start being mean. What are you doing? You are making a karma for your own decline. Okay, so therefore, if you are there, what is a smart way to keep there? Become responsible. Become responsible and say, I am at a privileged position. What can I do to enhance the well-being of others? Because the minute you think like that, who are you helping? You think you are helping others, but you are also helping your own self. Please understand, there is no philanthropy in vision of Veda which is only for the sake of others. Yes, it could be for the sake of others, but it includes you. When it includes you, it becomes what? Part of your own intelligent living. It's for my well-being too. Because anything that I do which is for the betterment of others, it is also going to come back to me in form of opportunities.
In the instances we receive from a very wealthy, very intelligent, in spite of having all the intelligence and the wealth, they are not able to enjoy it.
Exactly. So that means that you have certain cause. That's what I'm saying, that you, let's say I have applied my mind, let's say, right? I have applied my intelligence in this whole cognitive capacity. Cognitive capacity means I'm really good at mathematics and things like that, and I do my job really well, meticulously and all, and then I get promotions. Okay, but I have not made enough effort to grow emotionally. Okay, so what happens is, because of my technical competence, I begin to get what? Certain promotions and all that. But if I have not taken care of my emotional intelligence, what happens is, what? I cannot stand when somebody does something, if I'm a perfectionist and if somebody, my subordinate gives me something which is not good, then I'm not helping that person to grow, but I'm rude, then I'm agitated. So there are so many things that, so here is a typical case that you can be surrounded by success, you can be surrounded by riches, and at the same time, emotionally, you can be highly volatile and highly dissatisfied. This is why human growth is generally, what happens is, human growth, the way we define, we are very unidimensional. So here, this whole understanding of Ishvara makes us multidimensional and makes you see that you can't just pay attention to one and ignore the other. Because when you do that, the effects of that ignoring that comes out and it looms large. You can't ignore it. That is a way for the Ishvara to show you, hey, you pay attention to this because you have excelled in this, but you have not paid attention to this, so now the time has come to pay attention to this. But generally, do we take the clues? We don't take the clues. What happens? We go deeper and deeper into our selective thinking, and then we create our own downfall. That's why growth and maturity is so important, not only for somebody who is in Vedanta, but for anybody who wants to do, who wants to do anything in life. You need to understand the nature of the world within which you are operating, and even if you are interested only in money, you need to understand Ishvara. How Ishvara in form of Lakshmi works, you need to know that. Because if you don't understand it, sooner or later you lose it. You need to. Okay, so therefore, any aspect, please don't ignore your success. And this is where, unfortunately, many, by doing this division of material and spiritual, people have done so much harm to a human psyche. Because everybody wants success. Everybody wants to have resources. There is no human being who doesn't want resources. Then you create guilt around it. You create complex around it. By saying, oh, I should not go for this and I should go for something else. Okay, then you always feel that that something else can wait because right now my need is only this. And when you don't have perspective, proper perspective in going for resources, what? Even if you get for some time, you lose it. You need proper perspective. You want to be a scientist, you want to be a businessman, you want to be a CEO of a company, you need proper. You want to be a good husband, you want to be a good father, you want to be a good mother, you want to be a good friend, you need proper perspective in life. You can't avoid it. Okay? And proper perspective in life includes the presence of Ishvara. You can't have a proper balanced perspective if you don't understand the causes which are making all these apparent differences. Why are there apparent differences? If you look at the apparent differences and if you don't understand Ishvara, what will you conclude? World is unfair. Because why somebody is born like this and somebody is born like that? That is our starting point. And imagine if your interaction with the world is with this implicit assumption that world is unfair. What is going to be the quality of your interaction with the world if your implicit assumption is everything is unfair? Good people don't get rewarded and bad people only flourish.
Very cynical.
Very cynical. Okay. You need to change some very fundamental beliefs that you have about life and living in order to have a healthy living. And in order to have that proper perspective, you cannot avoid bringing in Ishvara. Because Ishvara is the one which reconciles the apparent differences with what? Certain amount of the presence of laws. You can't blame anybody. Ishvara is not partial. It's in form of laws. You are born with a capacity to look after your body. Either you abuse it or you use that capacity to help yourself. That possibilities are given. And the way you guide your life, it will bring the result. Don't blame Ishvara. In everything. Okay, so then it makes you have proper relationship, even intelligence. Intelligence is not, it's looked upon as Saraswati. You welcome the divinity in form of Saraswati. You ask for clarity. even artists, either the artist, some of them can really, there was a beautiful story, and I'll end with that story. Okay, there was this, there's a nice story about Tansen. Okay, Tansen is the one who was singing in the court of Akbar, and he was considered to be like really the best. Nobody could touch him, right? One day, one person had gone to a forest and he heard somebody else, and he felt that he surpassed Tansen. His thing was completely another level altogether. So he comes back to Tansen and he says, I met somebody in the forest who I think is even better than you. And then Tansen said, I know who it is. He says, who? He says, that's my guru. He says, oh, your guru is better than you? He says, yeah, obviously my guru is better, but not because he's my guru, because he says, I sing for Akbar, he sings for the Lord. When he sings for the Lord, he has no constraint. He sings for that Lord and he is just free. He's free here. Right? The same thing we all can be. You can be in midst of things, but if you create that connection with Ishvara, in whatever you are doing, you don't have to go to the forest. In whatever you are doing, there is a certain amount of freedom. Freedom from understanding how the world is, and the presence of that intelligence which is pervading in and through every aspect of the universe. That connection, if you have with Ishvara, if I'm able to give you some knowledge, I would like to give you that connection with Ishvara. That will take you not only during this lifetime, for lifetimes after. That is the most fundamental connection. Okay? And it has to be seen in every different aspects of your life. Thank you. Heavy? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.